Hello, my name is Lacey Ross. I chose to do my individual cultural project assignment on Japan. I have always been interested in the differences between Japan compared to the United States. Specifically, I'm interested in the way that business is conducted. Japan does a lot of business all around the world, and it's fascinating to see how different cultures blend while doing business. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to conduct business in Japan? I have actually always wondered what it would be like. The differences in the culture compared to the United States is very different in some ways, and very much the same in other ways. Today, I'm going to talk about the most important things that you would need to know if you planned on doing business in or with Japan. I will tell you some important details you should consider when making your traveling arrangements. I'm going to address the context of culture. I will talk about business ethics. I will give you some great helpful tips on business etiquette. I will also teach you some important words in the Japanese language, including popular greetings. And last, but certainly not least, I'm going to talk about dining etiquette. There are a few very important things that anyone should consider before booking traveling arrangements to Japan. First, it's very important when traveling to a foreign country that you research the culture before visiting. It would be smart to research a few key things to help you navigate the country. I'm going to go over what those things should be. I also think it would be very helpful to learn a little bit about the language before going, because Japanese is the main language spoken there. Some Japanese people know a tiny bit of English, but sometimes it's very hard to understand because they miss the filler in between words. They could probably communicate their main point, but in a lot of cases, some Japanese people don't speak any English at all. And I actually don't think it's very appropriate to travel to a foreign country with a different culture and expect them to know how to speak and understand English. Not many foreigners move to Japan. Those that do are pretty much from Korea or China. Some students do, however, travel to Japan to study and just to get the experience of another culture. I would actually find this very interesting, and I would love to learn the culture by experience rather than by research. I think it would be like a whole different world to me. I've never experienced a different culture like that. The Japanese yen is the currency in Japan, and it would take 106.53 Japanese yen to equal just $1 US. And in Japan, cash is king, and they do not accept debit and credit cards everywhere. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of cash on hand to get the things that you would need. Restaurant servers get paid a good living wage, so they don't actually expect to be tipped. If you leave some extra money on the table and don't specifically tell the server it's for them, for their great service, they might come running out after you when you leave to give you back the money that you accidentally left. A more acceptable form of tip would be like a little trinket or a keychain from your hometown. And when you give it to them, you should present the server with a bow in thanks. But don't make too big of a deal of that because they will feel bad because they didn't give you a gift in return. Currently, due to COVID-19, international travel is actually banned right now, and it's not the best time to be traveling around the world to learn about other cultures. When traveling bans are lifted, you would definitely be required to have a passport to travel to Japan. It is considered safe to travel to Japan. The Japanese culture generally believes in doing the right thing and has one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Japan has very high context culture. Unlike the United States, they rely on a very indirect style of communication, and they use more implicit forms of communication like nonverbal cues that they would expect you to basically read. How will this affect business? If you miss these cues and end up not fully understanding what is being communicated, you could easily offend someone without even realizing it. I think because of this indirect style, you should try to be a little less direct and try to somewhat meet them in the middle and avoid being too forward or too blunt. Adapting to their culture in this way could be extremely beneficial in the long run. One way to overcome these barriers is with a bridge that we can create through relationships. Relationships give us something in common. They help us understand the different cultural contexts. Once a relationship is built, the barriers can be bridged with trust. The more you build on a relationship, the more you start to learn and recognize the traditional nonverbal cues. The next thing you know, you will understand their implicit way of communication. Business ethics in Japan are relatively similar to the United States. One difference, though, is that Japan practices civil law and the United States practices common law. Japan and the United States business ethics are similar in that both countries' government has three branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judiciary branch. The head of the executive branch in Japan is known as the Prime Minister, whereas in the United States, the head of the executive branch is known as the President. Both countries practice similar laws relating to bribery. It is much more ethical to be anti-bribery, and both countries believe that it is the right thing to do. Business etiquette is quite a bit different in Japan than it is in the United States in many ways. One very important thing to keep in mind would be the first impression that you make when entering a business meeting is very important. It is important to dress for success and bow instead of shaking hands. Place both arms straight down at your sides and look down at the ground. The highest ranked person in the room gets the longest bow and the steepest bend in the bow. When being introduced or introducing yourself, be sure to present a business card and make sure to bring plenty of them. It is traditional to give one to each person at the meeting. Give them out in order of rank, starting with the highest and ending with the lowest rank. Bow while handing them out. If you really want to impress, have one side in Japanese and present with that side up. If you want to schedule a business meeting, be sure to schedule them personally by phone. Do not fax or email this important scheduling request. Do this several weeks in advance and do not be late. It is a sign of disrespect when you show up to a meeting late. Japanese business people do not like to say no. They will use more nonverbal cues to tell you that they do not agree. If you are confused with what they actually want, ask them, do you agree with this? This will give them a chance to communicate in a more positive way and give an honest answer. Gifts are traditional at the end of the first business meeting from the most senior person on each side. It is also traditional for milestones and major holidays thereafter. Elegantly wrapped gifts are encouraged, especially those that nourish the sweet tooth, like chocolates and cakes. Just do not wrap it in red. Red is the traditional wrapping for funerals. You'll leave your meeting on a high note if your gift is wrapped elegantly, and any gift that you might receive is later opened in privacy. Knowing a few of the basic greeting words will be almost essential in communication around town. I would like to teach you a few of the words that I know. Konnichiwa means hello. Sayonara means goodbye. Onegai shimasu means please. Arigato means thanks. Yokoso means welcome. Deguchi means exit. If you do not know Japanese, it would definitely be necessary to have a translator for a business meeting. You do not want to be confused when it comes to business. If you plan on consistently doing business with Japan, it will prove very useful to try to learn the language. Your new business associates will be very impressed with your ambition and will feel more respected if you go out of your way to learn their language. Dining etiquette is one thing with many different rules in Japan than in the United States. The seating arrangement is important and symbolic. You may be required to sit in a seiza position with your heels underneath your butt. This can become very uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to sitting like this. If you are told to get comfortable, men may sit cross-legged and women may sit with both legs to one side. Your mouth is the highest point the chopstick should ever reach. Keep it below that and you will be just fine. Chopstick etiquette is an interesting topic. Never let your chopsticks rest over your bowl. Traditionally, you should have a chopstick rest. Whenever you set down your chopsticks, use the chopstick rest. If you do not have a chopstick rest, use the wrapper that you were given the chopsticks in. If that is not available, simply rest them on the side of a tray or another similar item on the table. Just do not rest them over top of your bowl. While it may seem polite to not let your food fall, cupping your hand to catch falling pieces of food is actually considered bad manners. Slurping your food is a sign of appreciation. In Japanese culture, slurping your food shows how much you are enjoying the meal. It also cools down the piping hot noodles and enhances flavors, so go ahead and slurp it up. Although it may sound hard to eat your soup with your chopsticks, use your chopsticks to eat all the solid food from the broth of your soup. When you are finished, bring the bowl up to your mouth like a cup of tea and drink the broth straight from the bowl. It is common courtesy in most cultures, but especially in Japan, to return all of your dishes to how they were at the start of your meal once you were done eating. This includes replacing all the lids on the dishes and putting your chopsticks on the chopstick rest or the paper holder they came in. Always be conscious of how much soy sauce you pour yourself. Only pour yourself as much soy sauce as your meal requires. Overserving soy sauce in a small bowl provided is considered bad manners. It is common to just leave a trace. Do not stab your food with your chopsticks. This is considered bad manners. It is not a harpoon, and you are not on a hunting exhibition. Traditionally, the one who does the inviting usually pays the bill. Sometimes circumstances such as rank may dictate this. If you insist on tipping, which is not common in Japan, 10% is plenty sufficient. So in review, remember to study on the culture and do not hesitate to ask a question or two to clear up any misunderstandings. Also, it's good to know the parts of business ethics that are different than in the United States. Try to adapt to the implicit way of communication. And it may actually be a nice change in the level of formal business etiquette in Japan compared to the United States. So you could just enjoy it. And make sure to study up on the common greetings. It would be better to start trying to learn the language before going. Also, do not forget to be sure to pay special attention to the specific dining etiquette that is regularly practiced in Japan. Now you're pretty much ready for a business trip to Japan. Of course, once the coronavirus settles down, that is. Make travel plans and book your trip out a couple years and enjoy the interesting culture of Japan. I have also provided the resources that I use to research this interesting culture. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you all enjoyed it.